Well, I want to welcome everybody today on this nice, cool summer day. We're going to eventually get into cooler temperatures at some point. Thankful to be with you guys today. Last week, Jeff did a phenomenal job presenting information for buyers for us, and he'll continue that today. So I'm excited about that. Before we get started, Hugo, would you just invite the Lord to be with us today and to guide our conversations and to bless our business, please?
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you once again, Lord, for this beautiful day. Thank you, Lord, for Premier Legacy and the founders of Premier Legacy. Lord, thank you for all the hardworking people that are in this business, Lord. And we pray, Lord, for each one of our agents. We thank you for Bruce and Kim and Sharon. Thank you for each of them, Lord, for everything that they do. We now ask that you bless this meeting, that you be with us and give Jeff the words that he needs so he can help educate us. We ask you this in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. Before we get started, also, what's everybody seeing? You know, obviously the market's been changing. We got the Fed increase the other day, but from everything I can tell, that actually slightly helped mortgage rates, I think. But what's everybody seeing from your buyers and your sellers? What are you hearing out there? What's the feeling and the vibe that you're getting from people? Just anybody jump in.
I think we're seeing things.
Point,
Go ahead.
I've been kind of slow, but I have met with a new couple that's interested in jumping in now and buying. They've been working to get their finances ready, and they went to the husband actually knows somebody in the mortgage industry, so they're going through somebody they know and trust. So I'm waiting to hear about their pre-approval. But I think people they're kind of untrustworthy right now, still, the market maybe and the economy. So I'm hoping maybe in the next couple of months, things keep improving, gas maybe keep dropping, and maybe people will start coming back around. That's my.
Yeah. And good morning, Katie. Welcome. Is anybody hearing, or does anybody have any clients that in the past months just couldn't get anywhere as a buyer and now they're seeing some hope? Have you heard? Because I've heard some of that. I've had a couple of people say, we think we're ready to try again, since last time we just couldn't ever get our offers accepted. Morning, Anna. Well, I know that feeling's out there. It may not be out there as much as we want, but then again, if we're touching lots and lots of people, I think we'll hear it more. Jeff, I think you started to say something a while ago.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that. I mean, that's a great point Tommy brought up about people that are starting to see some hope and everything like that. And what you said, I think we're still seeing some hesitation going on, a lot less calls coming in, people looking for what they are. But now's the time. And if anyone's looking for lake property, we're telling people, if you're looking for a lakefront with lakes down 2 to 3 feet down, it doesn't look pretty right now, but it literally reduces the price of homes $100,000 to $200,000 if you want a lakefront property.
Wow.
So it's selling for around $800,000. You can probably get for around $600,000.
Wow.
So I mean, I got someone that had $800,000 listing and we put an offer for $650,000. We ended up at $685,000. So there are deals out there, especially on lakefront properties. Make sure that, you tell your people that even if you wait probably another month, they'll probably even go down more as long as the heat wave continues. You'll see the prices go down even more on the lake as you get some dry docks in that. And dry docks are only 1 to 2 years, maybe 3 years at the most. After that, you can enjoy another 7 to 10 years of good lake weather. Usually, I mean, that's pretty normal for Texas around this time of year. But now's a good time to buy that lakefront property if they're looking.
A lot of messaging opportunities. I shared with my team yesterday some good verbiage from our good friend Brooks Kelly about, that it really is a new opportunity for a lot of buyers who didn't have an opportunity a few months ago, and that just because the Fed is upping regular interest rates, that sometimes that can actually help mortgage rates. And everything I keep hearing from my lender friends says that if and when they actually do admit that we're in a recession, that could also help interest rates. So, tough times, but also lots of hopeful times. So before we get started, one last thing, any wisdom from our broker, Sharon?
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I remember, years ago when we had the severe drought, and those properties out at the lake were so, gosh, I wish I'd bought. But yeah, I'm seeing people, get ready for opportunity, because there's always, housing is always needed, and we're continuing to, multiply and increase on the earth, despite some people efforts. But yeah, so we're always going to need housing. So affordable housing is, I don't think people can go wrong, as long as they there's always going to be a need. So I'm seeing a lot of people just get ready for opportunity, because they're expecting that there will be some bargains come along. So.
Very good. Thank you, Sharon. And with that, Jeff, feel free to just jump on in.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, we covered up to finding out the buyer's possible loan type. And I've asked Bruce to have a lender come in, or whether it's on Zoom, or come in and do a class on the types of loans that are out there. If you're new, or if you're unfamiliar with loan types, it's very important to understand the loans that are out there, what credit ratings they have to have, and just to have a basic general knowledge of it, so that you're not out burning rubber on your tires by showing homes that are only going to go conventional. They're not going to go FHA. And so that's something that you need to know and understand, and then help educate your buyer at the same time. We also talked about conversation with the buyer. If it's first conversation, ask if there's other homes you'd like to see. Before we went out and did that trail, has anyone been able to go out and look to see on Netris as far as directions in that, or if anyone has any questions for that we talked about as far as planning your route in Netris? No? All right. And we also talked about the buyers writing their buyers' names on that agent sheet when you're out there showing to them. By the way, question for anyone: what is the difference between a home and a house?
Maybe I can answer. I don't know.
Yep, go ahead,
a buyer is buying a home, and a seller is selling a house.
Correct. Good job. Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's, you got to catch yourself when you're talking to people. Sometimes if you talk to a seller and you talk about their home, it becomes personal with them. If you talk about their house, it's not personal with them. With a buyer, you want them to connect to that home. It's not a house they're buying a home. So good job. Thank you. And that just, it helps when you're out there with the people and you refer to it their home. And when you're out with the seller, you refer to it as a house. So when we find the right home for your buyers and the home is occupied, what questions should we be asking the listing agent? But before I say that, first of all, are you familiar with the transaction desk on Netris? What the transaction desk is, okay? And what is that?
The transaction desk is going to be where you find your seller's disclosure, your survey, on-site sewer, anything pertaining to that property.
You're reading my notes, aren't you, Melissa?
No.
And actually, that was right in the same order I had it on. That's kind of strange. Also might have lead-based paint. Any HOA restrictions, kind of rare that you see that, though. And then sometimes you see offer not restrictions, suggestions and comments, such as, they want a second agent to be emailed. They might have a legal description, might have the owner's name. If you're a listing agent, to put down C-tax or something like that, it's kind of frustrating when you're looking for land to not know who the owner is. So you check the transaction desk, and then you should be asking, should call, text, email the agent some questions. Any of those that were not in the transaction desk, we should be asking for the survey. Ask them if they have a survey. Ask them if they have seller's disclosure. ask them the on-site sewer, lead-based paint, any HOA restrictions if they have any.
Do they need a lease back?
Yep, exactly. And that'd be a question we'd want to ask the agent, right?
Yes.
Do they need a lease back? Sometimes they put it in there in the offer suggestions they might have if there's a lease back that's needed in that. But rarely do we see that. It's on occasion. So some other questions. What other questions would you want to call the agent and ask them? Assuming we already went through the list of items that have been in the transaction desk. What kind of questions would you want to ask? What kind of questions do you guys ask if you do that? When you call, what questions do you ask the listing agent?
I ask them what their clients are looking for in an offer, if they need a lease back, what's important to them, how many offers they have, just all that stuff to try and, make our offer more enticing.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Anna. Anyone else have anything that they would add to that they asked the listing agent?
If they've already got an inspection report done.
Okay. Good answer.
Survey.
Okay. And the survey was something we thought that, that's part of that should be in there. So, okay. So, past inspections, right? And when do they have to do, how far back do they have to go for past inspections that they have to disclose?
4 years.
2 years.
4 years. 4 years. If you look on the seller's disclosure, it says 4 years. List any inspections done in the last 4 years. Okay. That doesn't mean that they have them available, but they are to list it that they did have an inspection done on it. So past inspections are great. They don't have to, if they had the inspection done, they don't have to necessarily disclose it, but whatever's on there, they're held liable for it. So, anything else you would ask for? Okay. Some other thing, what about seller's preferred closing date? If you want to ask them, you're asking about lease back, you want to ask them about seller's preferred closing date as well. How long is it going to be before they want to move out? Is it something, hey, are we looking like a 2 week? If you got a cash offer, you want 2 week, or do they want 4 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that? Kind of rare 6 weeks, but it might happen. Okay. What if someone's asking $800,000 for a home that you think is only worth $600,000? Would you want to ask that agent for the comps that they might have? If you see something that's outrageous, ask them, hey, do you have the comp? I can't, you just tell them, you say, I can't find comps to support your price. Do you have comps to support that price? You'd be surprised how many agents will say, well, that's what the seller wanted. That's what the seller needs. But it gives you a starting point of where, how you're going to present your offer. And if they present you with comps, then it gives you an idea as far as that's what you present to your buyer as well. Because sometimes it's just your buyer that feels that they're overpriced. And maybe your comps don't support the full price. They got an $800,000 listing. They want to offer they think it's over $600,000. Your comps show $700,000. So by having another agent, the listing agent, have comps to show $700,000 to $800,000, it could help out as far as what you want to offer in that. Okay. Then the next part is we get into the putting together the offer, which I think should be another class, but something I want to come back and Sharon, you got the email I sent to you, correct? With the screenshots? Sharon, you're on mute.
Yeah. Yes.
Did you get it?
Do you have which one you want first?
The one with Zillow, the very first one talks about the address on there. Nope, not that one.
All right. Hadn't done this lately. So
That one shows the transaction desk for those of you that didn't know where it was at. It's kind of on, while she's looking for it, this is kind of on the subject. It's one that has the address on there, on the attachment.
All right. Try again.
While she's finding that, how many of you guys had someone call you up and say, hey, I want to look at this $300,000 house in Forney. And when you're talking to them, you find out that they want their payments to be $1,900. Okay. Between, around $1,800, $1,900. And you wonder, well, they can't afford this one because the payments are going to be more than that, because that payment's going to be probably closer to with a 3% down, 3.5% down. That payment's going to be a lot higher than that. And what I wanted to show you, what she's pulling up, is going to be the Zillow listing. If you ever look in Zillow, if you're not familiar with Zillow, if you ever go into Zillow, on the right side, when they talk about the house, they got the list price. And if you go farther down, yeah, this one here. So this is a listing in Forney. This is a current listing, by the way, in Forney. And if you look, it says estimated monthly payments of $1,869. So someone thinks, well, that's I want to keep my payments under $2,000, and they feel really good about it. So they think they can afford a $300,000 house in Forney. Now, if you go to the next screen, Sharon, this one, actually, if you click on that thing that talks about price, it actually, the principal and interest, I don't know if that's, there should be one that has a principal and interest on there. And it expands. If you hit that, click on that little arrow to the right. Nope, not that one. That's transaction desk. If you click on that arrow on the right, it actually breaks it down, and it shows that they are putting a down payment of $59,000 on that home. They're putting 20% down is what they're looking at. So not too many people have $59,000 put down. And when you look at $59,000, when you're looking at, you're looking at another $300 to $400 a month in payments by taking that off on what they actually do have for a down payment. So this is why people that look on Zillow think they can afford a $300,000 house and keep their payments under $2,000. They're not looking at expansion. This is the whole purpose of this was to show you guys what to look for, or to help the people understand, here's why Zillow does this. It makes it look good, but they're assuming a 20% down. Why do they assume a 20% down? No PMI, which is about $100, $125 a month, maybe even $150 a month extra. That 20% is another $600, I think it is. No, not $600. It's like $60 for every 10,000. So that's 6,000. That's $360. Another $360 for that payment. So now you're talking about over $500 more a month in that payment, and that throws them off of what their budget is. So this is just something that for you guys to understand. As far as Zillow, you get people that call up and say, hey, this is the house. They're looking at payments, but yet they haven't gone out to get pre-approved, because they look at themselves. They want a payment of around $2,000. Maybe that's what they're paying for rent now, whatever it might be. They want to keep it around that. But that's just to help you guys understand that. Okay. Then we talk about the contract itself. As far as writing in a full offer, what questions do we need to ask our buyers? Anyone?
When they want to move, when their lease is up.
Correct. So you want to know when they want to move, right? So a closing date. What else? You guys know, Sharon said something about lease date, right? And you got buyers out there that say, well, I can go ahead and just break my lease. And before they do that, there's a couple things on. They've talked to lenders that say it could hurt your credit rating by breaking your lease. And I say that personally because I was going to break my lease a month early on a rental on my on an apartment, and they wanted to charge me not only the 2 months rental, but also it would count as a broken lease, which didn't make sense. I was just telling them, here, I'll pay the extra month and you guys can have it. They said, we can't do that. So the apartment went empty for a whole month. So that's something you can ask them and kind of coach them through. If they're going to get charged for a 2-month lease back, tell them don't break their lease, especially if they only got 2 or 3 months left on their lease. I mean, it's going to be, 30 days before they close, and you can extend it out to 45 days if you need to. But find out what the lease end date is for them. What other kind of questions should we ask our buyer?
Well, if it were 3 or 4 months ago, I was always asking or trying to discern, even though what the lender has said on a piece of paper. I always try to, when it was a more competitive market, and it still can be sometimes in certain situations, I always try to get an idea of what are you willing to do, what are you not willing to do. If it gets to a situation where you really want this and maybe you've got a little competition, what are you willing to do to make it a little more competitive? Okay, maybe you can't put a whole lot more money down, but are you willing to buy a title policy, or are you willing to forego the seller paying for your home warranty? Or there's some little or maybe you'll buy the survey. Maybe you'll do as minimal number of days as you realistically can for your option period, because no seller likes to have their home sitting off the market for several days. So little details like that, I'll try to find out what are you willing to do to make this offer a little bit sweeter that doesn't necessarily, break you financially.
Good points. Anything else? Bruce, your brother used to say something to us all the time at meetings, and in this market, it really, really sticks. Even, a month ago, even today, it sticks. I don't know if you remember what he talked about as far as price and what their offer was. You ask them what would be your best offer. That's it. That's what we have to go in. But what is the highest you go? And especially in the market that was in just like last month. Bruce, you remember what he used to say to the buyer? Oh, you want to mute?
You muted.
I don't. Refresh my memory.
Okay. Well, I'll have George, because I know, George, are you listening in? Are you able to talk? Do you unmute? Maybe not. Because I know George uses it all the time. I hear George talk about it all the time when he's talking to his buyers, and that he'll always ask, and Johnny used to always say this. He would turn to him and say, okay, so you want to offer $300,000. Are you okay with letting this home go if the best offer is $302,000? It's like another $2,000 more than what you're offering. And if the person's comfortable with that, then you're okay. But the last thing you want to do is to let that person go, and then when they find out, oh, geez, it sold for $302,000, I would have given $302,000. And I always thought that's something really good. And like I said, I know George uses it all the time on people he's working with. I hear him talking to him, asking him, okay, you're going to be okay with this if it goes for this price more, especially when you're talking about the highest and best offer when you get multiple offer situations. So that's a nice term to go. If you go up a couple $1,000s more, eventually you're going to get to this point. At what point is your highest offer? That's it. That's what we have to offer. The other thing is, when you have an offer, remember, we're always going to put down as is. We're accepting as is unless there are some things that they definitely need to have fixed. We try to tell them that we'll get some of the stuff back in the repairs if needed. And I think you see that quite a bit. In fact, I don't know if you guys, Sharon and Bruce, did you guys see about Open Doors been sued for they lost a $22 million lawsuit or something, a big $1 million lawsuit for false advertising?
I saw that.
No, but I'm not crying. I hate dealing with those folks. So sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead, Melissa. What'd you see?
Always been misleading.
Yep. They're misleading because they come in with a high offer, and then all of a sudden they come in and say, well, we got administrative fees. And actually, George and I saw this on the listing we had in Heath. They came in, it was listed for I think I can't remember the price, $600,000. They came and said, well, we'll give you $590. And they said, well, we want $10,000 for painting and flooring, which we thought, okay, that's reasonable because it's a big house. And then they said, and then there's a $50,000 administration fee. $50,000 administration fee. Yeah. Wow. Along with some other things, fees and that. So that $600,000 house now came down to like $530,000 what they're really offering. So, and that was Zillow, I think. But Open Door was doing pretty much the same thing. They would tell you, hey, we're going to give you this offer. And then they come in with all these extra fees and like that. And of course theirs was, hey, you get to move at your own time, your own leisure. So that's something that's out there.
Where they've charged people 7% commissions and people just went with it.
Right. Yep. 7% commission along with administrative fees and everything like that. They got people pretty good. So they lost their lawsuit, in case you didn't see that.
I'm not crying. I'm not
Yeah,
crying.
I know.
Customer service is horrible. Trying to ever get a hold of people.
Kind of like the lenders that we see out there, that you deal with multiple people. The big the lenders that are nationwide, and that can't think of anyone right now. Zillow Lender is one of them. Rocket Mortgage is one. You know, if you guys have someone that's Rocket Mortgage, tell them to try to call someone to see if you can talk to them. Don't call the number for the to get signed up. Call a number to see you need to talk to someone and see how hard it is to get hold of that person you need to talk to. And multiple people handle it.
I wanted to say something, and I really touched on this last week too, but a few folks weren't with us. That's something that I think is extremely important. If your buyer gives you any opportunity to offer them some counsel regarding choosing a lender, if they haven't already made that decision, and that's just what they just have to go with those folks, you know, talk to them about interviewing that lender, ask questions. Hey, are you going to be somebody that I can count on to answer my call? I'm building a house in Terrell, and my lender, because I'm a captive audience, because we pretty much had to use that lender to get the closing costs concessions that we wanted. You know, when we're doing our disclosures the other day, and I had a number of questions. Of course, can't get a hold of my guy, so thankfully I called Linda Davidson, who answered all my questions. I'm thinking, how sad is that I'm having to call a different lender to get my questions answered? So I have found that either with me and or both the buyer interviewing and asking some hard, tough questions, even if they did go with that big corporate lender that you would have preferred them not to go with, sometimes those tough interviews and laying down that expectation that you want good service can sometimes wind up getting you a little bit better service than if you just blindly go into, well, I guess this is who we're dealing with, you know, Bank of America or Chase or Rocket Mortgage or whoever. It pays to ask tough questions. Interview.
Definitely. Oh, you're muted, Jeff.
Sure did. There we go. Sorry about that. Great. Bruce, that's great point. Kind of goes into, I have a home lenders to consider email that I've put together. I've updated it since the original buyer's guide was out there, because on there, what I've added was, here are some questions to ask lenders while searching for the right one. Because, you know, we don't want to lead them to our only lender. We don't want to do that, but we want to allow them to go to shop around if they want to. But here's some questions that they ask, and some things such as, what type of loans do you offer? Do you offer a down payment assistance programs? And let me tell you, down payment assistance programs, you can go to, I'll use Fairway Mortgage as an example. Fairway Mortgage, they are a branch franchise. So one Fairway Mortgage in one, ABC city, Texas, might offer down payment assistance programs, but the one in XYZ, Texas, which is only 10 miles away, might not offer down payment assistance programs. It's up to each individual mortgage office on what they want to offer in that. So don't get stuck and don't think, well, geez, Fairway Mortgage is bad because they don't offer down payment assistance program. There are other ones that do offer it. So don't get stuck on just the name of it, of the company, because each franchise is different and are handled differently too. But which mortgage is best for me? You want to ask them. Will you be explaining the loan estimate to me and what all the costs are? Do you handle underwriting in-house, or please explain the process for me? What is the average loan processing time? What is your average underwriting time? I mean, it's amazing. I know a lot of you've heard this, where you ask a buyer, hey, have you applied for a loan? Have you talked to a lender? And they go, yeah, I have. I'm waiting for a response. When did you apply? Well, I applied last week. I should hear sometime this week. Like, you're like, what? I mean, our lenders are approving people in 24 to 48 hours. Why would you be going with a lender that's going to take 7 days to approve you on a loan? So how often do you communicate with me? And my real estate agent needs to be a minimum of one time per week. I'll tell you, the best lenders out there are the ones that send out a weekly email to not just the listing agent, the buyer's agent, and the buyer, whoever it'd be the buyer. Let them know what's going on, whether it's conditions are waiting to be met, appraisal is scheduled for this date, a weekly communication. I don't think Rocket Mortgage does that. How do you communicate with me? Email is preferred, so you have a record of the conversation along with the date and time. If your buyer wants to be communicated via text, that's fine, or a phone call, however they feel comfortable. I personally prefer emails only because I have a date and time stamp on it. And then what do I need to bring to the closing table? How much do I need to bring to the table? Those are some questions that I've got on my email I send out for home lenders to consider. It helps them understand if they're going to go out and search, ask these questions to your lender, to the lender they're considering, and it might make them switch. And I got to tell you, if you have a preferred lender, I would send those questions to your preferred lender saying, hey, I'm going to refer Johnny to you, and you might here's some questions they might be asking you, just that they're prepared for it. And they have the answers instead of being thrown off on it. They might even have an email that's already got those answers on there too. Okay. So that's a thing to do as far as, and that was kind of backing up as far as lenders to consider in that. We talked about pulling comps in that. How far back should we go for comps?
6 months.
6 months.
So just a thought. Yeah, I typically do 6 months, 180 days. I've had a couple different brokers lately that I, think well of their abilities have shared that they, because of the changes of recent, in some cases they're going, 80 to 100 days back because so many price decreases that have happened. But some different thoughts out there. Generally, I always do 180 days.
Okay. And then as far as the year of the house is built in 2014. Any suggestions on that one?
Yeah, I was always taught 5 years prior and 5 years, later.
So you're going
if
a
it's
decade.
2000
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're
it's
adding
built
5
in-
and subtract 5.
Yeah. Like if it was built in 2005, you look, 1995 to 2005.
I've never had that specific, which I like hearing that. I've never had that specific rule that I'd heard or gone by, but I generally try to go with a span of years that seem relative. To me, built in 1980 is not the same as built in 1995. So I generally try not to, I don't think I probably go much more than 5 years generally, but yeah, if it was 2014, I'd probably be looking at, maybe 2005 up to maybe 2018 or 19, but I like that 5-year rule too.
And then house size, you can go plus or minus around 200 square feet, right? Anyone do something different more than 200 square feet? 300 square feet?
I was taught 300.
Okay. And really, when you look at this stuff, what you really want to do is you're going to get a span of houses. You got to look in the area too. You got to put your circle around there. You're going to go by closed now, not sold, closed, pending, active, and all that. And then once you get however many houses, you start out with a criteria. Once you get that, then you want to narrow it down. You can narrow those numbers down more. So if you got the 10-year span and you got 100 homes, well, then go 5 years or 3 years each way, so you narrow it down. If you go 300 feet and you have that many homes, narrow down. Or if you go 200 feet and it's too small, you only got 4 or 5 homes, then expand it. So there's no technical rule that says what you have to use. What it is you want to get enough homes in there to feel comfortable and enough homes. What do you guys say? Inadequate, nice to have 10 to 30 homes, and then you do the elimination from there. But if you can't get 10 to 30 homes, at least 10 homes, right? Anyone think it should be more than that or less than that? I think 10 homes is a minimum number you'd want for your criteria to look at comps. And that's
if you can get them.
If you can get them, yeah.
Here's another thought I want to share about comps that I've seen some newer people sometimes do, is if, for example, if it's in Mesquite, I always, if I can, love to have comps in the direct neighborhood because I know what kind of houses those are. I know pretty much the style of homes in every neighborhood in Mesquite. So if I need to go out a mile, then I know what kind of houses those are a mile away. And I know if those are anything comparable. But obviously, if the houses a mile away were built in the 90s and my subject home was built in the 50s, those aren't going to work. Well, if it's in a community that you're not generally as familiar with, and you start going out beyond quarter mile, a half mile, or mile, you're going to have to do a little bit of research as to what kind of homes are those. Because sometimes the year built may not be enough. There may be other distinguishing factors about those homes that are very different than your subject home. So researching when you're not in that familiar area is very important.
Great point. Great point. And then if you're not familiar, and this is something we can show in class or maybe show on the screen next time, is doing a quick CMA to find averages when you're doing, you click on the homes that you want to take. Of course, you know, we got pools and size of the lot, if they're out in the country and that, you know, you can click on the quick CMA and it gives you an idea approximately where you're at. And then going back to our math in school, you got mean, median, and mode, right? And you see on the report, you see, I think it's average and mean, median. I mean, average and median is what you'll see on the report. And average is just taking those 10 homes and dividing by 10, and that's what your average price is. Median is what's the one in the middle. Now, just remember, in yesterday's market, it was you have to go on the higher side, right? You have to look at the higher one. You can't just go by median anymore. You got to go by what are the top prices are, because that's what was going on. Today, I think you can go by the median. I think you can be comfortable with the median. There's going to be sellers out there that are going to think that they still should be at the top of the median, above median. But you can probably use more of a median as a starting point for your offer on that. And of course, if you have issues, you can always ask that agent, where'd you get your comps from? Especially if it's way off, especially if they exceed the top highest price. And there's agents out there, and everyone was doing it last year. Everyone's doing it. What's the highest price house in the neighborhood? We're going to beat it. You know, you want to be the top price in the neighborhood at the time.
Can I offer a thought also, Jeff?
Yep, sure.
So, you know, you've got sometimes, so number one, it's the market analysis is so important, because the last thing you want is, when it comes time for appraisal, the last thing you want is for your sellers, that home to be appraised at $20,000 less than what you had recommended. Not that couldn't happen anyway, but it doesn't normally happen. You want to make sure that you've got comps that are in that file at your office or wherever, that you can show the whole world, here's how we came to these numbers and here's why we recommended that price. Now, of course, I always still tell my buyers or my sellers, in this case, hey, even though this is what I think it probably is close to, and generally my appraisals come in good, there's no guarantee that an appraiser may not have a different mindset and go way off base. I never want anyone to just assume it's a done deal. But another thing I do when it comes to CMAs, if it's especially with a seller, is some sellers, in their mind, their house is the most wonderful home in the world, and it would have to always be the highest price. And so sometimes I'll go into that CMA and I'll pull up and I'll match each listing. I'll look at the pictures. I'll look at all the different amenities and the comments and send them those individual listings so they can see the difference in their home and all these other homes, to help them understand this is why we're arriving at those numbers.
And that's a great point. And that goes out to, you know, the buyers too. Here's why they're asking this price. Here's a house for 225 and this one's 250. Why is it 250? Well, look at the one for 225, you know, let's show them the pictures of that, show them what's sold, and how it's sold and everything like that. You know, we get into, write up the offer, one thing we should do, and this will be on a class, if you don't have templates set up in your zip forms, you should get them set up so that it avoids writing up so much extra on it. It can help you out a lot as far as time wise in that, because, you know, then we get into writing up the offer, you know, and we want to go in and start on zip forms. And this could be getting to the next class that we get into, and that would be how to set up the templates. Is anyone out there not using templates as far as when they write up an offer, that template's already designed? Anyone not doing it? So I'm assuming since no one responded, everyone's doing it. Well, that's good. Because it makes your time so much quicker to do it. And if you aren't doing it, then, you know, please send me an email. I'll walk you through it. I'll meet with you and we can go through and show how to do a template, because it makes it so much easier on doing it. On the contract, I think this is probably a good spot to stop here, is because we're going to get into the contract. I think we want to see it in the there. There was one other point I want to say, because we're talking about seller's disclosure in that, and Bruce was talking about prices and that, and it's kind of like a twofold thing. Number one is, Bruce, you're talking about your seller and how much to offer and, you know, to list the house for. When they complete that seller's disclosure, you know I tell my people, hey, be honest. You know, remember that sticky door that you always, you know exactly how to open it, but it's a sticky door. You need to put down as a sticky door. You know, that window that doesn't open, but you never use it, you need to put down the window that doesn't work. Because here's the thing, and this goes back with the offer too. When you're presenting the offer, you look at the seller's disclosure, you should be reviewing the seller's disclosure. And I'm telling you, George and I always refer to this as, it's a perfect house. Why? Because there's nothing wrong with it. Okay. But when you go there and you look at the house, you know it's not a perfect house. Here's the thing I always tell my sellers when I go to list a house. I said, listen, you need to be honest, because here's what they're using as a base. If you're going to tell them it's a perfect house and they find a sticky window and a sticky door and they find a crack or a hole, or, you know, they find this stuff, they are going to mark that down off the price, because you're assuming it's a perfect home and we're pricing as a perfect home. So make sure that the seller's disclosure is filled out properly. Now, if you're representing the buyer, such as what we're talking about today, if it's a perfect home, then you let the person know, say, hey, listen, we're going in, this is supposed to be a perfect home. So whatever we find, we don't need to say it now, but we'll put the offer in. And then when it's time for the seller's disclosure, well, they said it was a perfect home, but yet we noticed this, this, and this, and this was wrong with it. That's going to help you get negotiations on repairs, and the price in that. Okay. So that seller's disclosure is very important to understand and know. Probably what 75%, if not more, are always listed as, I call, a perfect home. They don't have anything wrong with it, or they always, the common one is the settling of the house. Not a foundation issue, but it's just normal settling. But you see a big crack in the wall. I guess normal is because a lot of houses have cracks. So that's something to look at when we're looking at price too, as far as the seller's disclosure, and look into it as far as the depth of it and what really is this perfect home, or are we starting out with something that they're being a little more realistic on it? Okay. I think next week we can get, or next time we can probably get into, when we have time to get into writing an offer, going through the contract and actually filling in what needs to be filled in, how it needs to be filled in.
Folks, we got a little time. If anybody has some questions for Jeff, or any issues you've been dealing with buyers that you're puzzled about, or anything at all, this is a great opportunity just to throw it out there.
I was wondering if we could get a copy of the email that you're sending out to your potential buyers for their questions for the
home loan?
lenders. Yes, sir.
Yes, I can. I'll
Thank
send that
you.
to Sharon.
Hey, Jeff, also, would you be able to send out the list of forms that are on your templates?
Yes, I can do that. What I can do is I can put together a bunch of I'll send out the emails to Sharon, and Sharon can send them out to everyone.
Awesome.
And guys, listen, this is just a template. It can be, please do it to so that it matches yourself. You have every right to change wording on it. If you want to update it, if you do some updating and you think it's better, please send it to me. I have no problem updating mine. Okay. I'm open for suggestions in that. I've had people look at and the wording sometimes got changed, which is fine with me. I don't have a problem with it. So I'll send those out, and maybe between all of us, we can come up with a really nice one that again has the basics covered on it. Like I said, anytime we do a template, anytime I do a template, I always tell people, please choose wisely, or you're free to choose whoever you want to choose. We're not steering you in any direction in that. I also tell people when I'm talking to them, I don't put it in my email, but I tell them, I don't get any kickbacks. I don't get kickbacks from lenders. I don't get kickbacks from inspectors. I don't get kickbacks from, anyone that's doing the stuff. I don't get any money from anyone on this. So, it's a suggestion based upon their performance that they've given to us in the past. So I don't put that in the writing, but I let them know that, when I'm referring, especially when I'm referring the lender out, I don't get anything back from them. I take that back. I've gotten a couple of turkeys from Brooks Kelly a couple years back, but that's it, around Christmas time. I think that's the only thing I've gotten from them. But anything else, I don't get any money from them. I don't get any, every time I get a suggestion or get a client to them, I don't get anything. And I let them know that, just so that way they know that I'm not leading them to someone for my own benefit. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll get that out to you guys probably later tonight.
So
something that,
please do.
Something that I'm not super confident with that it might be helpful to go over is seller net sheets.
Okay. That'd be more on the seller side. So I think when we get through the contracts, the buyer side and that, Bruce, unless you want to fill it in some other time, we can do that. We can do a seller's net sheet. I know Kim's covered it before, but it's no problem. We can go through it again and complete it. And again, that's probably not a bad idea to have that as a template on a seller's net sheet, because for the most part, prices don't change except for your title policy, which is a percentage, and you can look that up. So I mean, that's probably a good idea.
On the sellers, Kim did cover it a while back, but we may have a recording of it. If I find it, I'll send it. But one thing I do, if a lot of the title companies have a net sheet that you can use too, where the title company will plug in automatically for you what their fees are. So that I found that really helpful on title websites.
So, no, go ahead.
What was I going to say too? If you, just to jump back to what Jeff was saying about any vendors that we recommend to people, say we recommend a roofer or maybe a home warranty company, and I know there's some other real estate companies out there. There is a form. So if you do come into, like someone who says, hey, I'll give you a referral fee for whatever for recommending my company, there is a form to disclose it. So if you come into a situation like that and that's a potential, just make sure you have that form filled out and your people are aware that could happen.
And it needs to be signed before they suggest that company, before they take that company.
Yeah. I mean, generally we don't want to go there, but if we go there, we just need that form filled out.
Well, I hope everyone is glad that you were here today, because I think today was just as valuable information as last week was. I really appreciate the questions and the interaction with everybody. And I am going to take up Jeff on two suggestions that he made. One, the rest of this month's booked up, and I'll kind of talk about the next two trainings. Next month, we'll find some time to get Jeff back to go over filling out the contract for the buyers. And then we'll schedule some time to get a lender in to share, as he mentioned, some of the various loan products out there that, I sometimes certainly am not aware enough of those details. So it might help us secure a deal if we were able to explain those different options. Not that we want to try to do the job of our lenders, we shouldn't, but if we know enough to be able to offer just enough information to give some idea of, hey, I actually could maybe make that work for me. So we'll work on scheduling those next month. Next 2 Tuesdays. Next week, we've got a gentleman named John Turner, who is the manager or president of A&W Surveying in Mesquite. And I thought it would be useful for us to hear some of the details of how they do work. And we've all ran into some situations, good and not so good, with surveys. And so I think he'll provide some useful information for us, so we begin to see that side of the business a little bit better. And then we'll have our evening meeting with dinner the following Tuesday with Brooks Kelly, who will have some tremendous information to share with us that night. We had a great, we didn't do it last month, but the month before, we kind of started back our once a month dinner speaker in the evening. Had a great turnout, great event. And so we hope to have all you back then. And the next Tuesday with John Turner for surveying will be by Zoom. Any questions from anybody or something you want to throw out there before we wrap up for today?
Oh, I just want to thank Jeff for
Here.
being willing and being such a great teacher and speaker.
Excellent job.
And yeah, we really appreciate your all that you're doing for us all.
We'll have him back again soon. The hope for these trainings is to have a good mix of some meetings try to have a good speaker from various parts of the industry, and then some days have some nuts and bolts training like we've seen today and last week. So give me your feedback. If you have suggestions or ideas, email me or text me or whatever, and share some ideas you think would be good to incorporate into our trainings. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week. Go out and win, provide for your families, and get a lot of customers.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a great day.